I'm Quinn Harper, and this is the story of how I turned my family's crumbling computer repair shop into a $400 million tech empire, only to be betrayed by the people I trusted most, my father and my sister, and how I clawed my way back to take it all. For 10 years, I poured every ounce of my soul into HarperTech, a company that started as a flickering dream in a dusty strip mall storefront. What began as a failing business, barely scraping by on printer fixes and outdated PCs, became a national powerhouse under my hands. But success, I learned, has a way of unmasking the ugliest truths about family, loyalty, and ambition. Back when I was a shy computer science major at a local college in suburban Ohio, HarperTech was my father Robert's pride and joy, despite its constant flirtation with bankruptcy. He'd built it from nothing 20 years ago, a monument to his stubborn work ethic. My older sister, Sophia Bennett, was always the golden child, valedictorian, Ivy League MBA, dad's favorite. She'd breeze into town from New York, her designer heels clicking, tossing pitying looks my way. "Quinn, you're wasting your talent in this dump," she'd say, her voice dripping with condescension. "Aim higher." But I saw something in that rundown shop no one else did: potential. While Sophia chased corporate glory, I was in the trenches, learning the real world, coding until my eyes burned, fixing crash systems, spotting market gaps that bigger players ignored. I was 22, juggling finals and late-night shifts when I built our first game changer, a lean, affordable inventory management software for small businesses. It wasn't flashy, but it was intuitive, practical, and dirt cheap. Local shops ate it up. At first, Dad scoffed, his weathered hands dismissing my computer nonsense. But when the first licensing checks rolled in, his skepticism melted into a rare, fleeting grin. "You might be onto something, kid," he said, his voice gruff but warm. That moment, his pride, however brief, lit a fire in me. I wanted more of it, needed it like oxygen to a suffocating heart. I threw myself into HarperTech, working 14-hour days, 7 days a week. My social life withered. My apartment became a graveyard of takeout boxes and code-filled notebooks. Mom would slip into the office with Tupperware dinners, her eyes soft with worry. "Don't burn yourself out, Quinn," she'd murmur, brushing a strand of hair from my face. But I couldn't stop. Part of me was chasing Dad's approval, proving I wasn't the invisible daughter next to Sophia's dazzling star. Part of me just loved it, the thrill of creation, the puzzle of turning chaos into order. By year 5, we hit our first million in revenue. The shop morphed into a sleek software firm, signing contracts with national chains. I was building something real, something mine. But success has a shadow. Sophia, sniffing opportunity, quit her high-flying consulting gig and came home. At a tense family dinner, her wine glass raised like a scepter, she announced her return to take HarperTech to the next level. Dad's face lit up, as if she'd descended from Olympus. "We need your polish, sweetheart," he said, not even glancing my way. My fork froze midair, my stomach twisting. The company I'd bled for was being handed to her, like I was just a placeholder. I swallowed my hurt, my voice locked in my throat, but a quiet rage began to simmer. I didn't know then that it would fuel my greatest fight. We'd love to know where you're from. Leave a comment below and share your country with us. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I highly recommend doing it now so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. These aren't just ordinary stories, they're filled with meaningful life lessons that can inspire, teach, and stay with you long after the video ends. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. 10 years ago, I started in my dad's tiny computer repair shop, a cramped corner unit in a fading Ohio strip mall where the flickering neon sign barely clung to life. HarperTech was Robert Harper's dream, a stubborn holdout against the big box stores, but it was always one bad month from collapse. While my sister Sophia dazzled everyone with her Ivy League MBA and charmed Dad into calling her his shining star, I was the invisible one, hunched over a keyboard in a dimly lit backroom, coding until my fingers ached and my vision blurred. I was 20, juggling a computer science degree at a local college, fueled by cheap coffee and a quiet obsession. Where Sophia saw a dead end, I saw a spark, potential nobody else noticed. I poured my soul into that spark. During my senior year, I built a simple inventory management software, nothing revolutionary but practical, affordable, and perfect for small businesses drowning in spreadsheets. I coded it in stolen hours, my laptop glowing in the dark while the world slept. When I showed it to Dad, his bushy brows furrowed, skeptical. "This tech stuff's over my head, Quinn," he grumbled, waving a hand like he was shooing a fly. But when local shops started buying licenses and checks began trickling in, his tune changed. "You've got something here, kid," he said, his rare smile cracking through years of weariness. That moment, his approval, however fleeting, felt like a lifeline. I craved more, not just for him but for myself, to prove I wasn't the shadow to Sophia's spotlight. I threw myself into HarperTech, working 14-hour days, 7 days a week. My life shrank to lines of code, client calls, and the hum of servers. My apartment was a mess of takeout containers and post-it notes scrawled with ideas. Mom would slip into the office with her famous meatloaf, her eyes soft with worry. "You're running yourself ragged, Quinn," she'd say, her voice heavy with a mother's fear. But I couldn't stop. Part of me was chasing Dad's pride, the kind he showered on Sophia without effort. Part of me was addicted to the thrill, turning chaos into order, building something from nothing. I learned the market's pulse, spotting gaps big firms ignored. My software evolved, and so did HarperTech. From a handful of local clients, we scaled to national corporations, signing deals with retail chains and logistics firms. By year 5, we hit $1 million in revenue. The strip mall shop became a sleek office downtown with glass walls and a team I'd handpicked. I was building my legacy, but deep down I still felt like the overlooked daughter, hungry for validation. Then Sophia came back. She'd been climbing the corporate ladder in New York, collecting accolades and glossy magazine features. But when HarperTech's success hit the radar, she smelled opportunity. At a family dinner, the air thick with the scent of Mom's roast, Sophia raised her wineglass, her manicured nails glinting. "I'm coming home," she announced, her voice smooth as silk. "It's time I took my place at HarperTech. With my expertise, we'll go global." Dad's face lit up like she'd just solved world hunger. "That's my girl," he said, his voice warm with pride I'd never earned. My fork froze midair, my chest tightening. The company I'd bled for, my late nights, my sacrifices, was being offered to her like a crown. I wanted to scream, to remind them who'd built it, but I swallowed the words, my throat burning. Dad made her co-CEO, ignoring her lack of tech experience. "Sophia's got the polish we need," he said, not even looking at me. I nodded, forcing a smile, but inside, a storm was brewing. For the next 5 years, HarperTech soared, but so did the tension. I kept coding, refining our software, and nurturing client relationships. Sophia, meanwhile, played the star, giving TED-style talks, accepting Women in Tech awards, and taking credit for my innovations. She'd breeze into meetings with her tailored suits and rehearsed charm, while I was the one debugging crashes at 2 a.m. Our revenue hit $50 million, but she started sidelining me, excluding me from board meetings, making decisions without a word. I felt like a ghost in my own company, my contributions erased. The breaking point came at Dad's 60th birthday party, a lavish spectacle Sophia orchestrated at a 5-star hotel's ballroom. I arrived in a simple black dress, organizing logistics while she worked the room like a senator. I thought it'd be a night of celebration. Instead, it was an ambush. As dessert was served, Sophia clinked her glass, her smile sharp as a blade. "Tonight, we announce a new era for HarperTech," she declared, her voice echoing over the crowd of executives and investors. "The board has decided I'll take over as sole CEO. Quinn's done adequate work, but she's better suited for technical tasks. Leadership requires vision, and frankly, Quinn, you don't have it." The room went silent. I felt every eye on me, pity and judgment stinging like needles. My heart pounded, my face burning, but worst of all was Dad sitting there, nodding, his proud smile for Sophia slicing me open. She called me outdated, a liability, her words dripping with venom. I wanted to scream, to throw the truth in their faces, but I didn't. Instead, I stood, my chair scraping the marble floor, and walked to Dad's table. I placed my gift, a leather-bound album chronicling HarperTech's rise, before him. "Happy birthday," I whispered, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Then I walked out, head high, their whispers trailing me like smoke. That night, alone in my apartment, my laptop's glow my only companion, I made a decision. They thought they'd broken me. They were wrong. When Sophia swept back into our lives from New York, it was like a storm rolling into a quiet town, beautiful, commanding, and destructive. She'd spent years climbing the corporate ladder at a top-tier consulting firm, her name splashed across Forbes' 30 Under 30 and glossy business magazines. But when HarperTech's success started turning heads, she saw her chance to claim the spotlight. I'll never forget that family dinner at our old oak table in Mom's dining room, the air heavy with the scent of her signature pot roast. Sophia raised her wine glass, her diamond bracelet glinting under the chandelier. "I'm coming home," she declared, her voice smooth as velvet but sharp with ambition. "HarperTech needs real leadership to go global. I'm ready to take it to the next level." Dad's eyes lit up like she'd just handed him the moon. "That's my girl," he said, his voice thick with pride, the kind I'd spent years chasing and never caught. My stomach twisted, my fork hovering over my plate. The company I'd built from a crumbling repair shop was being offered to her like a birthright. I wanted to scream, to remind them that I was the one who'd turned it into a $50 million empire. Instead, I forced a smile, my jaw tight, and nodded. But inside, a quiet fury began to burn. Dad made Sophia co-CEO the next week, despite her knowing nothing about tech. She'd never written a line of code, never stayed up until dawn debugging a server crash, never sat with a client to understand their pain points. But she had an MBA from Wharton and a Rolodex full of elite contacts, and to Dad, that was enough. "Sophia's got the polish we need for the big leagues," he told me, his tone dismissive, like I was just the tech grunt who'd gotten lucky. I swallowed my pride, burying my hurt under 14-hour workdays. I kept coding, refining our software, and forging ironclad relationships with clients who trusted me, not Sophia, not HarperTech, but me. Meanwhile, Sophia took over marketing and investor relations, turning herself into the face of the company. She gave TED-style talks on disrupting tech, accepted women in leadership awards, and posed for photo shoots in sleek power suits, all while claiming credit for my innovations. I'd watch her on CNBC, smiling as she described our vision for inventory software she couldn't even explain. My team would glance at me, their eyes apologetic, but I'd just shrug and dive back into my work. I told myself it didn't matter who got the glory, as long as HarperTech thrived. But every stolen accolade chipped away at me like water eroding stone. Tension between us grew like a live wire, sparking at every touch. Sophia started excluding me from key meetings, making decisions without consulting me, changing pricing models, promising features we couldn't deliver. She'd sweep into the office with her entourage of consultants, issuing orders like a queen while I was left cleaning up her messes. Once, she promised a major client a custom module I hadn't even designed yet, forcing my team to pull all-nighters to meet her reckless deadline. "You're the tech wizard, Quinn," she'd say with a patronizing smile. "Make it happen." I did, but the resentment festered. I started noticing her subtle digs in front of the board, calling my ideas dated, implying I lacked the strategic vision for leadership. Dad, ever her cheerleader, nodded along, his silence louder than any criticism. I felt like I was losing my company, my creation, piece by piece. Yet I kept going, driven by a stubborn need to prove myself, to show them I wasn't invisible. I didn't see the betrayal coming, not until it hit me like a freight train at Dad's 60th birthday party. Sophia planned the event like it was her coronation, renting out the grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Cleveland. Crystal chandeliers glittered, champagne flowed, and the guest list read like a who's who of tech and finance, CEOs, venture capitalists, industry influencers. I wore a simple black dress, my focus on logistics, checking the AV system, coordinating with caterers, making sure everything ran smoothly. Sophia, in a crimson gown that screamed power, worked the room like a politician, her laughter ringing out as she shook hands and posed for photos. I stayed in the shadows where I'd always been, ensuring her stage was perfect. I thought the night would be a celebration of Dad, maybe a chance to bridge the growing rift between us. I was wrong. As dessert was served, Sophia clinked her glass, the sound cutting through the buzz of conversation like a gunshot. The room fell silent, all eyes on her. "Tonight," she began, her voice confident and commanding, "we celebrate not just Dad's 60th birthday, but a new era for HarperTech." My stomach dropped. I knew that tone, calculated, dangerous. "The board has decided," she continued, her eyes locking onto mine with a glint of triumph, "that it's time for unified leadership. Effective immediately, I'll be sole CEO." A murmur rippled through the crowd. My heart pounded, my hands clenching under the table. She wasn't done. "Quinn has done adequate work maintaining our systems," she said, her voice dripping with condescension, "but leadership requires vision, boldness, excellence. Quinn, you're just not cut out for this." The words hit like a slap, each one designed to humiliate. I scanned the room, hundreds of eyes on me, some pitying, some smug. I turned to Dad, pleading silently for him to stand up, to defend me. But he just sat there, his proud smile fixed on Sophia, as if I didn't exist. Mom, beside him, stared at her plate, her hands trembling. My vision blurred, not with tears but with a white-hot rage I'd never felt before. The silence was suffocating. Everyone expected me to crumble, to cry, to make a scene. Instead, I stood, my chair scraping the marble floor, the sound slicing through the hush. I walked to Dad's table, my heels clicking with deliberate calm. In my hands was the gift I'd spent weeks preparing, a leather-bound album chronicling HarperTech's journey, from that crumbling strip mall to the empire it was today. Photos, milestones, my blood and sweat captured in its pages. I placed it in front of him, my fingers steady despite the storm in my chest. "Happy birthday, Dad," I said, my voice low but clear, cutting through the tension. Then I turned and walked out, my head high, ignoring the whispers and stares trailing me like a wake. Cold night air hit my face as I stepped outside, but it couldn't cool the fire inside me. They thought they'd broken me, stripped me of everything I'd built. They were wrong. That night, alone in my apartment, the city skyline glittering through my window, I powered up my laptop. The glow of the screen was my only light, my only ally. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, I started typing, my fingers moving with a precision born of fury and clarity. Sophia and Stuart had underestimated me my whole life, but she'd forgotten one crucial detail. I held the keys to HarperTech's empire. 3 years ago, when we needed capital, Dad had sold me 6% of his shares, giving me a 51% majority. He'd signed the papers without reading them, too distracted by Sophia's latest awards ceremony. More importantly, the core software, 80% of our revenue, was owned by my separate company, Innovate Labs LLC, with a licensing agreement set to expire at midnight. As I drafted an email to every major client, partner, and employee, a small, cold smile curved my lips. Sophia thought she'd humiliated me in front of everyone. She was about to learn what I was capable of. Tomorrow, everything would change. The night of Dad's 60th birthday party, I sat alone in my Cleveland apartment, the city skyline a cold constellation of lights beyond my window. The betrayal at the Ritz-Carlton ballroom still burned in my chest, Sophia's venomous words, "Quinn, you're just not cut out for this," echoing like a taunt, Dad's proud nod slicing deeper than any knife. The silence of my apartment was deafening, broken only by the hum of my laptop, its blue glow my sole companion in the darkness. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, a clarity sharper than I'd ever known settled over me, cold and unyielding. They thought they'd erased me from HarperTech, the company I'd built from a dying strip mall shop into a $50 million empire. They thought they'd won. But they'd forgotten who I was, who I'd always been. As my fingers hovered over the keyboard, a plan took shape, fueled by years of swallowed slights and a rage that felt like fire in my veins. 3 a.m. I began typing. My email was precise, surgical, sent to every major client, partner, and employee of HarperTech. Due to recent leadership changes, I wrote, I am stepping back from HarperTech. I'm grateful for your trust in me and invite you to join my next venture. I attached a brief, professional bio, my patents, my track record, my vision. But the real weapon lay in what I didn't say. 3 years ago, when HarperTech needed capital to scale, Dad had sold me 6% of his shares, giving me a 51% majority. He'd signed the papers without a glance, too busy basking in Sophia's latest Women in Tech Awards ceremony. More crucially, the core software generating 80% of our revenue wasn't owned by HarperTech. Belonged to Innovate Labs LLC, my separate company, and its licensing agreement with HarperTech had expired at midnight. I'd asked Dad to sign the renewal papers last week, but he'd brushed me off, distracted by Sophia's party planning. That oversight was their undoing. As I hit send, a small, cold smile curved my lips. Chessboard was mine, and I was about to checkmate. Morning came, gray and sharp, the city waking under a drizzle. I arrived at HarperTech's downtown office before anyone else, my heels clicking on the polished lobby floor. The glass-walled conference room felt like a gladiator's arena as I set up my tablet, the screen loaded with legal documents and email responses already pouring in. 9 a.m., Sophia strode in, her crimson blazer as bold as her smirk, with Dad trailing behind, his face glowing with triumph. They thought they'd sealed my fate. "Quinn!" Sophia's voice dripped with surprise and annoyance. "What are you doing here? I thought you'd have the decency to stay home after last night." I met her gaze, my expression calm but my heart pounding with a mix of fury and anticipation. "Just tying up loose ends, Sophia," I said, my voice steady. "But since you're here, let's talk about HarperTech's future." Dad cut in, his tone firm. "There's nothing to discuss. Sophia's in charge now. The board's approved it." I tilted my head, a faint smile playing on my lips. "The board? Right. Let's talk about that." I tapped my tablet and the conference room's massive monitor flared to life, displaying a shareholder agreement. "You seem to have forgotten something," I said, zooming in on the key clause. "I owned 51% of HarperTech. 3 years ago, Dad, you sold me 6% of your shares to fund our expansion. You were too busy at Sophia's award gala to read the fine print." Their faces froze, Sophia's manicured nails digging into the table, Dad's eyes widening as the truth dawned. I clicked again, pulling up Innovate Labs' ownership records. "And the core software, 80% of our revenue? It's mine, held by Innovate Labs LLC. The licensing agreement expired at midnight. No renewal, no software." Sophia's composure cracked, her voice rising. "That's impossible. Dad would never," I cut her off, my tone ice cold. "He did. And there's more." I swiped to a flood of emails on the screen, responses from our biggest clients, logistics giants, retail chains, tech partners. "Last night, while you were toasting your victory, I informed our clients of the leadership change and my departure. Most have personal loyalty clauses in their contracts tied to me, not HarperTech. Guess how many are terminating their deals?" I zoomed in, showing dozens of termination notices. "Oh, and our top developers? They're employed by Innovate Labs, not HarperTech. They've already accepted offers to join my new venture." Through the glass walls, I saw employees clustering, phones buzzing as they read my email. Sophia yanked out her phone, scrolling frantically, her perfect facade crumbling. "You can't do this," she spat, her voice trembling with rage. "You're betraying us." I laughed, a short, bitter sound. Betrayal? You humiliated me in front of our entire network, called me worthless, and Dad sat there smiling. Betrayal is what you did. Dad slumped into a chair, his face ashen, muttering, "The renewal papers?" I didn't read them. I leaned forward, my voice low and unyielding. You have two options. Option 1. I walk away with my shares, my software, my clients, and my team. HarperTech becomes an empty shell, and you explain to your fancy guests why it's worthless overnight. Option 2. You both resign, keep your shares as silent partners, and I take full control. Sophia gets a severance package and references for her next job, somewhere far from here. Sophia's face turned a sickly shade of red, her fists clenched. You planned this, didn't you? You were waiting to stab us in the back. I met her gaze, unflinching. No, Sophia. I spent 10 years trying to be the good daughter, the good sister, while you stole my work and Dad looked the other way. I planned this 12 hours ago, after you called me a liability in front of everyone we know. My phone buzzed, another client termination notice. Time's running out. Choose. The next hour was a blur of lawyers and paperwork. Sophia's rage gave way to stunned silence, her eyes darting like a cornered animal. Dad signed the resignation forms, his hands shaking, his dream of a family legacy crumbling before him. By noon, they were gone, and I sat alone in the CEO's office, my office overlooking the city. The victory was mine, but it felt hollow. The album I'd made for Dad, filled with photos of HarperTech's journey, sat unopened on my desk, a reminder of the family I'd lost. I'd won the company, but the cost was a fracture that might never heal. Still, as I looked out at the skyline, a weight lifted. For the first time, HarperTech was truly mine. I opened my laptop, pulling up plans I'd kept locked away, new products, bold expansions. They'd underestimated me, but I was done proving myself to them. Now I'd prove it to the world. 1 year later, I stood as CEO of HarperTech, now a $400 million tech empire. From my sleek office overlooking Cleveland's glittering skyline, I watched the city hum, mirroring the pulse of the company I transformed. New software platforms, global deals, and daring expansions marked my reign. Every sleepless night, every sacrifice had built this. Sophia, her star dimmed, now worked at a modest Silicon Valley startup, her arrogance tempered. Dad retired, his silence heavy with regret for choosing the wrong daughter. Family gatherings were now tense, polite nods hiding scars too raw to mend. Mom's eyes, soft with sorrow, met mine across holiday tables, knowing the price of my victory. I didn't need to gloat, my success roared louder than words. I was invited to speak at Sophia's alma mater, Wharton, on the power of the underestimated. Facing a crowd of ambitious MBAs, I shared my journey, not to boast, but to inspire. The unopened leather-bound album on my desk, chronicling HarperTech's rise, reminded me daily. The best revenge isn't tearing others down. It's soaring so high that those who doubted you face their own failures. As I gaze at the skyline, I feel peace, not in vengeance, but in purpose. HarperTech is mine, built on my vision, and I'm just beginning. Here are 5 lessons for anyone who's ever been overlooked. Your work is your power. I turned a failing shop into an empire with my ideas. Your skills and grit are your greatest assets. Own them boldly. Don't wait for validation. I chased Dad's approval for years, but self-belief drove my success. Trust your worth, even if others don't see it. Protect your assets. My 51% stake in Innovate Labs saved me. Secure your knowledge, rights, or relationships before they're taken. Turn pain into purpose. Sophia's betrayal broke me, but it fueled my comeback. Let setbacks sharpen your drive, not crush your spirit. Rise above revenge. Proving them wrong feels good, but creating something lasting is better. Success is your loudest voice. If this story moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs inspiration, and subscribe to the channel for more tales of grit and triumph. Your support keeps these stories alive. As I plan HarperTech's next chapter, new innovations, bold markets, that album remains my anchor. Not of loss, but of strength, clarity, and a legacy that's mine alone.